Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Now we're going to wrap up a very busy week here with day 2 of the public impeachment hearings on Capitol Hill. Yesterday, it's Wednesday, I should say, we heard from 2 diplomats who are still working in the State Department. Well, today, the ousted ambassador to Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch, testified, and she had quite a bit to say. Mona Kozar-Abdi is live on Capitol Hill with the very latest. Mona?
Good evening. During her testimony, Marie Yovanovitch questioned how can the system fail like this, as she told lawmakers that the president's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, allegedly worked with corrupt Ukrainians to get her fired. Before lawmakers and the American people, former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch, recalled a chilling account of her final months as America's top diplomat there.
It's not the way I wanted my career to end.
Yovanovitch publicly testifying that the president's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, orchestrated a smear campaign against her that was used to oust her from her post, and outlining how early on she allegedly became collateral damage of the president's apparent shadow diplomacy in Ukraine.
Shady interests the world over have learned how little it takes to remove an American ambassador who does not give them what they want.
The 33-year veteran diplomat also telling lawmakers she was, quote, shocked and devastated to learn she was mentioned by the president in his July 25th phone call with Ukraine's leader, in which he called her, quote, bad news and remarked, quote, she's going to go through some things.
It sounded like a threat.
And mid-hearing, the president continued his attack on Yovanovitch on Twitter, writing, quote, everywhere Marie Yovanovitch went turned bad. His words prompting Democrats to accuse him of witness tampering.
I want to let you know, Ambassador, that some of us here take witness intimidation very, very seriously.
Meanwhile, Republicans pointed out that Yovanovitch was removed in May prior to the events at the center of the impeachment investigation.
You don't have a lot of facts and information relating to the part of this that we're investigating.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's correct.
And behind closed doors, the House is also hearing from a new witness, David Holmes. Holmes is the State Department official who claims to have overheard President Trump's July 26 phone conversation with EU Ambassador Gordon Sondland, in which the president allegedly inquired about the Ukraine investigations. Mona Kozar-Abdi, ABC News, Capitol Hill. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Mona. And again, testimony from David Holmes is now the second person to corroborate what we heard from Ambassador Taylor about that conversation with both the president and Sondland as to the real reason why the president was so invested in Ukraine. Okay, now as we wrap up the first week of public hearings, Nancy Pelosi, she's also ratcheting up the stakes. Take a listen and listen for the language change from the House Speaker yesterday.
The devastating testimony corroborated evidence of bribery uncovered in the inquiry, and that the president abused power and violated his oath by threatening to withhold military aid and a White House meeting in exchange for an investigation into his political rival.
So what was quid pro quo, now the language has become bribery. The thinking is it's more consumable and with the more detail that in fact there was a transaction of sorts and a conditional one at that. All right, now while today's hearing was going on, we got the verdict in the Roger Stone case, and it was devastating for the former Trump confidant. A federal jury found Stone guilty on all 7 counts. The former Trump advisor, longtime friend of the president, convicted of, among other things, lying to Congress, witness tampering, and trying to obstruct a congressional investigation. The Stone trial is one more loose end from the Mueller probe that has now been buttoned up. All of these charges stemming from Stone's attempts to thwart the investigation into Russian tampering with our election, and also WikiLeaks releasing emails from Hillary Clinton and the DNC. Stone, he will be sentenced in February. All eyes watching what, if anything, the president will do on his behalf. And in other legal news, new developments in the ongoing quest to get a hold of President Trump's tax returns. The case involving the Manhattan DA's attempt to enforce a grand jury subpoena issued to the president's accountants for 8 years of Trump's tax returns. Trump's personal attorneys, they tried to block the subpoena, but an appeals court ruled against them. Now, they've asked the Supreme Court to block that subpoena. This could prove to be a test of Trump's expansive claims of immunity and also presidential power that, in effect, he above the law if he's a sitting president. We will be fascinated to see if the Supreme Court even hears the case, let alone how they'll rule. Now, there are also closed-door impeachment hearings going on over the next couple of days. Right now, as we speak, David Holmes is being deposed. He, the Ukrainian embassy staffer, referred to Wednesday in testimony by Ambassador William Taylor. Taylor said Holmes overheard a call where President Trump spoke about the importance of the investigations of the Bidens. CNN got its hands on the opening statement, and Holmes, he confirms Taylor's account and the fact that Trump said he was more concerned about investigating the Bidens than what was going on with Ukraine. He also, Holmes says that he heard Gordon Sondland say the Ukrainian president would do anything Trump wanted, including the investigations. Tomorrow, White House budget official Mark Sandy is expected to testify again behind closed doors as long as he receives a subpoena. It's anticipated that in fact will happen. If he does appear, he'll be defying the wishes of the president. Sandy, he works at the budget office, the OMB, and that department was involved in withholding that $400 million in aid from the U.S. to Ukraine that Congress had appropriated. Let me bring in now two familiar faces, Dominic Carter, political journalist and author, and Andrew Whitman, our senior political correspondent. A lot of takeaways after the first week here, and throughout the segment we'll remind people who we're going to be hearing from next week, but we'll be hearing from a host of folks, some Republican witnesses that they wanted to hear, other Democrats, some of the more notable faces, certainly Lieutenant Colonel Whitman, who was one of the whistleblowers, we'll be hearing from him, and that is, again, on Tuesday. There'll be a morning and an afternoon session. The following day, everyone's going to be rapt, I think, to hear what Gordon Sondland says, because he's had changing testimonies. First, he said, no quid pro quo, and then after testimony that contradicted what he said, putting him in the crosshairs, he comes back and says, never mind. Yeah, there was a pressure campaign and it was wrong. And then on Friday, we're going to be hearing from Fiona Hill, she, the Russian expert, who a lot of people think could help both connect with some connective tissue some of the testimony that we've heard from some of the disparate players. Again, that's the end of next week. All right, guys, your takeaway from 2 days, Andrew, of testimony, some of it, dense, some of it separated from, the right and the left that gets in the middle of it. But I don't know. They all seem really credible to me, believable that they weren't in this for 15 minutes of fame here. They didn't even want to be there. But certainly, I don't know, inspiring in that these were public servants of the highest order.
These are foundation witnesses, fact witnesses. They're laying the groundwork for the rest of the charges against Trump to be built upon it later. This is all corroborating the information that came from the whistleblower. And so these are the hearings that basically eliminate the need to have the whistleblower come and testify. But what you're seeing is a consistency of testimony from these public servants, and everybody's saying the same thing. That's big. That to me says that.
And the Republicans haven't gone after their respective credibilities. They're really going after the process, saying, well, you weren't really there.
That's correct, which is why as this builds now going to next week, Fiona Hill may be the one we know of who can put it closest to President Trump. Gordon Sondland may also be able to put it close to President Trump. This new information coming about the phone call that Sondland and Trump had, as that fleshes out, could be really devastating to the president, because it puts him in the middle of it, and it indicates, if the reporting is true, that he wasn't interested in the corruption, he wasn't interested in anything,
and it's what we always
except
suspected.
Revenge on the Bidens.
Except two people now, not one, will say that's where it was. It'll be fascinating with Sondland knowing that and being as spineless as he seems to be, just how much he's willing to walk the plank here for the president, if at all. All right, Dom. Again, the biggest part of this is obviously, as we said, the man that this is all about, the president, of course. Mm-hmm. He couldn't help himself today. He couldn't help himself. This is going on. And again, the thrust of Yovanovitch is, for 3 decades, this woman worked in the State Department. She worked on behalf of the U.S. And even after she was offered an additional year after the expiration of the term that she hadn't even finished yet because they wanted to keep her on, she gets pushed out and she's smeared in the process by your old buddy Rudy Giuliani. So with all that as a backdrop, that there was a character assassination of somebody who did nothing wrong, with lies and innuendos, no basis for it, that the Republicans didn't offer a shred of evidence that what Rudy claimed, that she was, no fire list, the people you wouldn't go after for investigations, or that she was talking down the president. There wasn't a scintilla of evidence for all that. Just Rudy being Rudy. The president couldn't stay out of his own way and sends out a tweet here, again, going after this woman who he already said things were going to happen to and will take care of her. What's he doing?
It baffles the mind, Richard. That's the only way to put it. If what the president did today, if that isn't, we're looking at the tweet right now, if that isn't witness tampering while she's testifying, then I don't know what is.
And by the way, keep that up here. Dominic, he blames her for Somalia.
Right. When the reason why she was sent there is because she was so good at her job to handle what was a political mess that no one was able to get under control.
I don't care. You got to almost be the second coming to ruin a whole country. And
That's
she's
right.
just,
That's
a
right.
member of the diplomatic team. I mean, you've been Mogadishu. She couldn't have screwed that up by herself. Yeah.
Richard, but we giggle a little bit, but this is really scary. It really, this is the President of the United States and the Justice Department, after he tampered with a witness today, will not go after him, all under the disguise, if you will, of you can't indict and go after a sitting
Attorney
president.
General William Barr has now announced that it is imminent that he's going to release their findings about the Russia probe, attempting to totally, go after his old boss here, Bob Mueller, and moreover the whole issue that everybody believes certainly was not a good look for the president. But I will tell you another thing that really bothered me today. It's bothered me all week. Mike Pompeo, okay? Mike Pompeo, our Secretary of State, he puts people in harm's way. People as part of the diplomatic corps go to really rough spots around the world. In fact, at the beginning of her testimony, they talked about how she literally, without the body armor, without a flak jacket, went in some really dangerous places over the course of her career. We mentioned one here, the president made light of Somalia and the rest. He personally asked Ambassador Taylor, who testified Wednesday, to come out of retirement and come back to work. Taylor's worked for Republicans, Democrats, just like George Kent did, and just like Maria Yovanovitch did. The president, ruined this woman's career through the obviously intermediary of his personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani. Not a peep from Pompeo. Taylor, who he said, please, come back out and come be my point guy in Ukraine. He is not going to allow his reputation to be besmirched by what's going down and withholding aid. Again, Pompeo doesn't say boo. The State Department has to believe the rank and file and the people in the front lines of our diplomatic corps that at least their boss has their back. Mike Pompeo has been MIA through all this. It's political cowardice. He doesn't condemn them, but he lets the president do it, lets Rudy do it, and he hides for cover when it's convenient. And he is our forward face to our allies and the world. To me, that, I don't know why, Andrew, that has bothered me as much as anything this week.
I think most people in their regular lives can understand or have been in the situation where they find that their boss or bosses have left them on an island on something where they're all alone and they don't have the support of the people that they work for. It's a frightening place to be.
When they're carrying out U.S. policy.
It's a frightening place to be for anybody, much less for a public official. But what you're saying is this is a deeper problem, okay? None of us were born yesterday, so we all know that politicians are going to take a little personal advantage, a little political advantage out of whatever situation they can. But so much of our government right now, so much of our executive branch, I should specify, seems to be cut out specifically for the personal and political benefit of Donald Trump. And you're seeing it across the government. The Attorney General's office, the Chief of Staff's office, the Secretary of State's office, the Secretary of Energy's office. Where is the devotion to country, or at least putting devotion to country on an equal plane with your personal and political ambitions?
And how about
and
today
they're
at the
abdicating
hearings,
that
too.
responsibility every single time.
And we mentioned it before, guys, during Watergate, sure, there was partisanship, but you had Republicans. We mentioned a couple, James Baker, Fred Thompson, there were others, who asked the important questions of the witnesses because they were trying to get to the bottom of what happened. What did he know? Where did it come from? That came from James Baker, a Republican from Tennessee. And that helped lead to obviously what happened to Richard Nixon. I didn't see a scintilla of a profile of courage from a single Republican. One kind of at least took the middle ground. But when that's what counts here as something, that's a sad day. Guys, thank you. All right. They'll rejoin me in a minute here, and I want to give you a programming break before we head out to a programming update. We will continue to broadcast all the hearings live, then show you the clips and highlights as we discuss from 6 till 9 every night when there are hearings. You can see all of it on RNN and our affiliate stations. If you're watching us in Boston, D.C., and Philly, you know as well. And, of course, tonight, immediately from 7 o'clock till 9, we're going to show you the highlights of the Yovanovitch testimony, again with that shocker with the president's tweet being read live on air as he fed it in. When we come back, though, we're going to get the perspective from a former federal prosecutor. He'll join us, take a look at the case that the Democrats are building, Trump's tax returns, the importance of it, Roger Stone's guilty verdict, all in a very busy news day.